Okay, now let's talk about, let's call it matter matters. All right, it's going to be really important. So we are building points. All right, come in. All right, building points. So we've got, this works with any topic. So no matter what topic we have, we need to actually expand on our points. Let's have a look at, what was the one we did last time? What was one of the topics we've done? Yep, go.
Separate schools for smarter kids.
Okay, separate schools for smarter kids. Give me an example if we're on the affirmative team. What could we talk about? Go.
Like some schools, if we don't separate the schools, then some people may be bored with the learning that they do.
Okay, alright, so let's say that's one of the points, and let's say that's one of the main points we want to talk about. Whether that's a good main point or not, it's a good place to start. So here's what happens in a debate. Team will stand up and they've got that point, and they'll say, you know, our model is this, and then they'll go through the model and then they'll eventually get to, my first point is, if we don't separate these kids, then they're just going to get bored. My second point is, honestly, this happens. And this is probably how you're going to write your points. And this is no good. Because you know what? What you need to be starting to think about is, what is an adjudicator listening for? Now, initially, when we're learning about debating in the first couple of rounds, it's going to be best to adjudicate for them. The best debates that you have a chance at winning are the ones where you do the adjudicator's work and they love it. If you can think like an adjudicator, you are a long way towards winning. That's one of the main things. So it's not, a lot of people say, okay, how do I lose, or am I going to lose points for that? Or will I lose points in a debate? You never lose points in a debate. There are no points to win or lose. This imaginary points that people have in their mind that, oh, I can't say that I'll lose points. No, you won't, because there are none. What an adjudicator is listening for is things that they can credit you for. So your arguments go towards you. Or your rebuttals go towards you. Your information goes towards you. Nothing comes really away from you. It's just if you don't do something, that goes away from you. But it's all about the adjudicator is trying to mark off things that you have done, not take away things from you that you haven't done. So think in more terms of, how can I better this, rather than, what am I going to lose if I don't do it? Okay? So, an adjudicator might know exactly what you're talking about, but unless you explain it, it's no good. So you might say, we need to separate these kids because it'll be better for them, and leave it at that. But you haven't explained it. So you need to think of it in terms of this. Some people like to call it the Peel method, and you might have seen this before. I kind of like it. All right, it's okay. It's something that we need to probably work off anyway. So basically, what point am I going to make? So what am I talking about? What's my point? So the first example we came up is if we're doing the Smarter Schools one, we need to separate these kids, otherwise they're going to be bored. Okay? Next one. What I mean by this is, okay? So you haven't just said what your point is, you are explaining what that is, and then this is where it gets even better, because a debating team will do this, because you have to have points. A good team will do this, a great team will do this. And that's the important between being good and great. This actually stands for win. Not the most important thing, but good to have. It kind of tidies everything up, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But you don't have to have this. If you at least do the 3 and don't do this so well, that's okay. All right, so you make your points, explain what that point is, and then give an example of the point. So let's go back to that first one. We need to separate these kids, or otherwise they're going to get bored. Okay? What do you mean by that? Give me some ideas. What do you mean by it? Yep, go. Okay, kids will stop paying attention. Alright, so we need to separate these kids or otherwise they'll get bored. they're actually going to stop paying attention in class. An example of this is, give me an example of a kid being bored in class. Like, how are they going to be bored? Why are they bored? So, yep, go.
For example, so there's like a lesson and you're teaching addition.
Yep.
And like some people find this hard, but some people have quite a good understanding of this, and they've gone through it like so many times before, and they're actually like noticing all.
Yeah. Yep. They know it all. It's not really at their level. They're really past that. Okay. Have you explained how they'll be bored? All right. So you've made your point. Some kids are going to be bored. What I mean by that is that the work is not set at their level. An example of work not being set at their level is in maths class, where addition is being taught. They already know the basic stuff, but the teacher has to go over the basic stuff because that's where the majority of the class is at. But these 5 individuals, let's say, are at a much higher level. They're not really going to participate or get that much out of the lesson, are they? I've taken one idea and I've expanded it into about a minute point. This comes back to what I was talking about. Remember that as an affirmative speaker, you're going to have about 3 to 4 points. Second speaker, 3 to 4 points, that kind of thing. If you can start thinking about when you're planning your debate, so when you're in your prep room and you start thinking about it, each point should roughly take you about a minute to explain. When you have built that point and unpacked it, for want of a better word, when you've unpacked that point, does it go for a minute? It's not actually very long. If you follow this, the points will build themselves. But what you can't do, guys, is just do this. Just go. Smarter kids need different skills because otherwise they'll be bored. They also need smarter skills so they can. You haven't explained it. You really haven't. Do you understand the difference? Yeah? So you need to just keep on building it. An educator's got to be able to go. Yeah, and it also gives them time to write. You can imagine if you're going, I'm going to talk about 3 points, and you go, bang, point 1, point 2, point 3, in about 30 seconds, are they going to be able to write that down? No, not even the best adjudicator, they'll probably miss the second one. And plus, you get the other team going, well, they said something, but they didn't really explain what it is. So another team can listen and go, nope, don't get it. All you did was just say that was what the problem was, but you didn't explain what the problem is, okay? So, building on your points. Now, last one, link. This is where you link back to your team line. Or, it could be your model as well. So if we're the affirmative team, this example, therefore, links with what we're talking about in our model. This links back to why the change needs to happen so quickly, or links back to why we need to introduce these things in these particular areas. Like, that's why we've got to have it now. That's why it has to start next year. That kind of thing. So this also gives the adjudicator a little bit of time to think about this stuff that you've done and still write his or her notes down. If you say it too quickly, they can't write it. If they can't write it, I've seen plenty of good debating sides will sit at a table at the end when they've lost, and the adjudicator will be explaining why they lost, and then you'll see them sit there going, but I said that. But I said, yeah, you said it in 1 sentence. It went for 5 seconds. They didn't pick it up. Or if they did pick it up, it wasn't long enough. Yeah, you said it, but you didn't explain it. And because you didn't explain it, you didn't get it credited to you, or it didn't come across as a main argument. This is where a good first speaker really needs to spend a bit of time on this, because what are they going to have? The best points. So they need to have the best explained points as well. Though your second speaker still needs to explain them quite well. So this is point building, and you're going to need to work on some of those to get a really strong case. Next thing, let's switch. Or any more questions about matter before we move on? No? So build points, that's what you need to do.